Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Round Lake Area Board of Education at 7 p.m. on Monday, June the 1st, 2026. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Jewett? Here. Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Tavera?
Here.
Miss Lee? Here.
If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we can get a motion to approve the meeting as listed in the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Miss Lee? Yes.
We have an approved agenda, and first up on that are special recognition and presentations. And first up here is the April Athlete of the Month and our athletic director, Mr. Karolzak.
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is a makeup, I guess. When we celebrated our April Athletes of the Month, this young lady was actually busy playing in a playoff game. So, excuse me, she wasn't available that evening. But it brings me great pleasure to present for recognition our Female Athlete of the Month for April from our girls soccer team, Annalie Deanda. Here to talk about Annalie is assistant varsity girls soccer coach David Pelez. So, Annalie.
Make sure you hold down the button.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Did not know I was gonna present a speech of this fine athlete that we have tonight, but I will. Annalise a sophomore. She's got above a 3.0 GPA. She was all conference, all sectional as a sophomore. That is great. She's one of our captains. She leads by example on and off the field. I couldn't be more proud of to present this award to her in this young career that she has. Bright future for her. I'm really excited to see her grow, not only as an athlete, but also as a young lady. And probably more awards to come that you guys will see, hopefully, in the near future. I'm very proud, and I wish you nothing but the best.
All right, next up is Principal Peterson and our Congressional Art Competition recognition.
Good evening, everybody. So each year there's a congressional art competition that happens, and there's 11 schools in that congressional district, and each school can enter up to 10 pieces in that. And here comes one of those art pieces right now. So in each high school's can, like I said, can enter up to 10 pieces for their student. This year, Round Lake senior Carrie Trujillo earned honorable mention with her fantastical pen and ink drawing entitled "Emerging from the Ink." And what's really outstanding about this is that this is the first award that Round Lake High School has received in 10 years at this event. Us being in this exhibit this year, this was under the direction of Ginger Cole and Heidi Varela. So once again, congratulations to Carrie for getting the first award in 10 years at this competition. All right, next we will continue with communications to the board, and first up is the end of year student achievement update, K to 8 and Skirts.
All right, good evening. I am here this evening with Dr. Steffen and our elementary and middle school principals to share our K-8 end of the year student achievement data as it relates to the iReady assessment. I will briefly review the iReady assessment overview with you, and then we will have the principals at elementary first, followed by middle school, review their fall to spring iReady data by building. They will talk about their grade level placement, progress towards typical growth or stretch growth, and then we will go into takeaways and next steps. These slides should look familiar. We reviewed them last year, but as a healthy reminder, iReady measures assessment growth in a variety of ways. So first, iReady is an adaptive assessment that is web-based that measures students' ability to read and their math skills as well as it relates to their grade level placement. It is adaptive this year, not only in math for English and Spanish, but also for reading in English and Spanish. That's a change from last year. Spanish wasn't adaptive last year. We talk about iReady in regards to placement, annual typical growth, and stretch growth. I think my slides are, oh yeah, my slides are a little over. Okay. So the typical growth refers to the average annual growth that a student will make in the current grade level that they're in based on their baseline placement. It shows how a student is growing compared to average student growth for students that are in the same grade and the same placement level as they are. It is a normed reference measure of growth. The stretch growth is recommended growth for students who are performing below grade level. We hope that students achieve their stretch growth because that puts them on a better trajectory towards closing gaps they may have in their learning. iReady expects that 50% of students across the nation will make their average typical growth in a year. And for stretch growth, iReady expects 25 to 35% of students will make their stretch growth in a given year. You'll also see tonight that we will be talking about annual typical growth as measured by the median progress a student makes. What that means is if you line up all the students in the grade level, we are looking at that middle student's growth, and half of the students make above that growth and half of the students make below that growth. Principals will also be sharing overall placement data. That is equivalent to the grade level they are currently in. There are scale scores within each range in the chronological grade that the student is currently enrolled in. iReady considers proficiency the green slashed range or the mid or above grade level coloring that you'll see on the far left. That's number one. Number two highlights the area in which you'll see annual typical growth. Again, that's the median progress by building and grade level, and you'll see percentage of students meeting their annual typical growth on the slides the principals will share with you. Number three represents the annual stretch growth. Again, that's the median progress by building and grade level, sometimes percentage of students meeting annual stretch growth as well. And again, iReady expects that 50% of students will meet their annual typical growth and 25 to 35% of students will make their stretch growth. Before Dr. Steffen comes up to share some other data with you, do you have any questions at this point on the overview of the iReady assessment?
So did I catch you said that Spanish was not available last year in math, correct?
Spanish was not available as an adaptive assessment in reading last year.
Was that us, or was that it just wasn't available in iReady?
Correct. All right, I'll hand it over to Dr. Steffen at this time.
All right, so you will find in this slide presentation that this particular slide of kindergarten data highlight is repeated at the end, as well as the following slide that will talk about some areas of strength and areas of focus. But we wanted to be able to kind of frame a little bit around the conversation to start with, to just point out some key pieces that we're gonna highlight again at the end. There will be points, as you saw with Ms. Kurtz, where we pause and allow you for questions because we know there's a lot of data and information in here. So just, as we go through the data, we'll pause and let you ask questions along the way, and of course, again at the end. So to start off with the kindergarten data highlight, this is our, I would argue, largest celebration in the teaching and learning and with our primary buildings in regards to our iReady data. I want to call out in the beginning the data table there and explain how the data is represented. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll dive into those bullet points at the end about what we feel are the factors that led to this significant increase in student achievement. So what you have in the data table on the left-hand side is each of our schools that have kindergarten with Beach, Ellis, and Murphy, and then an overall district score. So you have data from the 24-25 school year last year for ELA and math, and then all the way to the right-hand side of the graph, you see that data for the 25-26 school year. So what you can see in reading at Beach is they had 22% of students, and I should have called out too, this data is specific to the measure that Ms. Kurtz mentioned of being at mid or above grade level. So the percentage of students that are in that shaded green placement, which iReady tells us is a predictor of students' proficiency when they take the IAR. So last year at Beach in ELA, 22% of our students were ending the school year at mid or above grade level, and this year it jumped to 29%. So that was a 7% increase. At Beach, it was at 13% and jumped to 24% with an 11% increase. At Murphy, it went from 23 to 33 with a 10% increase, which gives us a district average of 20 to 33 with a 13-point difference there. So you really see some pretty significant jumps in student achievement. When you look at the math data, you go from 35 to 40 at Beach with a 5% increase. Ellis jumping from 26 to 45, which is crazy, 19-point difference there, and Murphy going from 33 to 41 with an 8% increase for overall, with the district then moving math from 29 to 41% of our kindergartners performing mid or above grade level by the end of the school year. So again, I'll dive in at the end of the presentation into the different reasons and work that we did that we really think made this huge shift in student achievement and increase in student learning at kindergarten. So a couple of strengths and areas of focus that I want to pull out here. In particular, when we look at the strengths, I already spoke to the kindergarten data. Then you can dive into, there's a couple of buildings as our principals go through the data where you will see that our students with disabilities are having higher progress towards their typical growth than their non-disabled peers in various buildings and various grade, different buildings and different contents. There's also, with the median annual typical growth exceeding that 100%, that also happened in various content areas in various buildings. And finally, the final strength we noted here was the more than 50% of our students had an improved placement So that means they were moving from being, either well below grade level and moving up in that placement scale at various schools and in different content areas. So we'll dive in again a little at the end. And some key areas of focus to just call out that we'll dive into in detail at the end are really having a better understanding, increased understanding of the data that's provided within the iReady assessment to help teachers make shifts in their instruction, whether it's enrichment or intervention. We'll dive into how that work will be happening. We'd like to see some more goal setting and data conversations with students. That's definitely an indicator that is proven through research to make an impact on student performance if the kids are involved in understanding how in setting goals for themselves. We'll talk a lot at the end about the shifts in curriculum that we made at elementary and that are coming for middle school. And then finally, one of the big pieces that Ms. Kurtz and I will jump into is really diving in more and understanding with building principals and administration on the iReady reports and how they relate and correlate to the IAR. Because we're learning that there's some differences and iReady is new for us. So just diving more into that and gaining understanding we think will be very beneficial to the building administrators as well as district administrators.
And IAR, just for the board, that's the state assessment we give every spring. So iReady's local, IAR is the state. So
Yep. So at this point, we're going to move into the slides for our elementary principals. So we'll start with Miss Metz, lots of M's there. Once we finish, I believe our last elementary school is Miss Carden with Ellis. We'll jump in and see if there's any questions about elementary and then move us on to middle school data. Okay.
Trina, go ahead and hold the mic down while you're speaking.
All right, good evening. So in our data, the one thing that we wanted to focus on this year was the instructional piece of what did we actually accomplish this year. In looking at our data, we made some notable growth with some increase in reading and math. And we focused on the personalized pathways that the students participate in. So that is through iReady, and it is at the students' individual levels. So this year we had bulletin boards showing the growth for the total number of lessons that students completed, and we focused on the past lessons, how many they passed out of how many completed. And we also recognized them with their certificates twice a quarter at midterm and end of the quarter. And they received a little scratch-off ticket to earn dojo points, so that was even more of an incentive. And this allowed us to recognize that collectively, the students passed over 62,000 iReady lessons this year, which we're very proud of, which I think has attributed to the growth that we have seen. In terms of our targets for next year and what we are looking at, we are going to be focusing on having our case managers for special education continue their intentional work, looking at the lessons for IEP goals, which is what we started this year, and we're going to continue next year. We are going to be looking at also focusing on the data conversations in our elementary PLCs, our morning meetings, and looking at our instructional strategies for our tier 1, which is what every student receives for instruction. We want to also focus on what teachers are doing at tier 2, which is that next level of instruction in their small groups, so that the activities are not just worksheets, but they are hands-on, engaging, and differentiated for the students based on perhaps their learning gaps or areas of enrichment.
We're going to progress through the.
Good evening, everyone. As far as Murphy Elementary goes, as the school year came to a close, 25% of our students ended the year meeting that met or above grade level section. That's that shaded green area on our continuum. Similarly, there was 24% of our students ended the year in math in that same category. that when you look at where kids started at the beginning of the year, we saw a 22% increase from the fall in the English reading test and a 21% increase in math. Kind of put that in perspective as far as math goes. We basically started the school year with 12 kids that were at that mid or above grade level section and ended with almost 196 students. You might be aware of this, but the Illinois State Board of Education shared a report early in the year just about how well children in dual language classrooms are performing as they get older. We've always told our families that when the kids hit that 5th grade mark, things really start to click. Both languages really begin to take focus. And when we look at how our students performed in the Spanish reading test, it's a point of celebration. We had 44%, or about 60 kids, meet or score above grade level in that sense. Although some of our achievement was about as high at the elementary level district-wide, there were areas in terms of growth that we, as a SILT team, feel like we could make some improvements on, particularly in the area of reading. 43% of our students K2 met their typical growth target. Students with disabilities scored actually higher, so that points to the example that Dr. Steffen was speaking to earlier, where our students with disabilities were outperforming our general ed population. So that is a success within an area where we feel is an area where we can improve. But as far as our school improvement plan efforts, I think there are 5 quick specific things that we've done to get the results that we've seen so far. One, our teachers have a stronger familiarity with our instructional materials. We have a new math and reading programs, and they've had some time to be able to really begin using those with fidelity. The familiarity is stronger. We've had some classroom incentives where kids are monitoring and tracking their progress as they take part in those personal pathway activities that Mrs. Metz referenced earlier. Like most of our schools, we did a lot during the testing windows to really increase our school spirit. So our older students were creating signs of encouragement for our younger students. Our younger students were creating decorations for our older students. We had spirit days. But I think there were 2 things that made the biggest difference. So the third one was just simply teaching our kids the concept of growth and goal setting. So even in our youngest classrooms, our kindergartners, we introduced those topics in kindergarten friendly ways and help them get the sense of this is where you're starting and this is where you would aim to complete the year. And then even more than that, the system, iReady, does provide these pathways. But as our school improvement plan team was looking deep into it, often the recommendations can be general in nature. And so when you begin looking at the specific learning standards or domains, our teachers began personalizing, making sure that if our kids were going to be doing those practices, that we were laser focused, that we weren't spending too much time having kids over practice skills that they're already good at and demonstrating proficiency with, and really focusing on those areas that are at the readiness level. That seemed to have some of the biggest differences there. So again, familiarity with those new tools and tweaking them so that we're making the best of our kids' time.
And board, just a quick pause, just because you're going to see a lot of these. Everybody clear on like what the graphs mean? That's why I wanted to stop for a second so that we wouldn't have to keep explaining it. So go ahead. No, I maybe a little bit.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand then there's this progression that usually happens. And so for instance, I'm on actually that one in Murphy Elementary K2, right? Yes. And then so the fall, the beginning, and then so this is where a student is in relation to where they should be at the end of the year, correct? So if I think about, so then I take that K through 2 and then I kind of slide it because they're going to end up going to middle school, right? But they're not going to start at the combined two greens combined 44%. They're going to start wherever they should be, right? Back, yeah.
You're thinking the right way. So it's in the grade level that they're currently in. So if they're in sixth grade, where they might have left off in fifth grade at mid or above grade level, they might be early on for the next grade level because now it's measuring them for sixth grade standards compared to where they left off for fifth grade standards.
So this pattern of should be, and is the scale, the colors, right? And is actually that's normal. Yeah. And where the goal would be for us for like nail it, right? Is if it's 50%, and is that 50% the striped, or is that 50% both green, or where's the 50%?
So the 50% is actually for growth. So yeah, so this slide shows the percentage that a student should make in a given year. So iReady says that 50% of students will make their average typical growth, which is this slide.
Murphy, sorry, I can't read it. I believe their met percent is 47. Can you read it either? And then it's 50% for students with disabilities. Like Scott had pointed out that the students with disabilities were outperforming the students without. So that column of met percent is for the annual growth. And then over to the right is where you see the stretch growth. So there's different measures. When Casey was going over in the beginning of the presentation, I'll flip there real quick. There's 3 different measures we're looking at. And we're talking about the first one that you were talking about was their placement. So they're starting the year wherever they are in that first grade. And by the end of the year, you're correct. You should see them as they're learning more first grade content. You should see them moving along the right, to the right of the scale, right? Where the kids are learning more. The next area, though, is the other chart we were talking about with the typical growth and stretch growth. So those are 3 different metrics. The first one is where are they at on grade level? So on IAR, that would be proficiency. Are they at grade level? But then the next one is are they growing, which is also a measure that you see on the IAR of are they meeting how much you expect them to grow? So they might be well below grade level, but they grew a lot and now they're closer to grade level. So you're looking at proficiency at grade level or growth in just what's an expected rate of growth.
And if you're behind, if the students are behind and only making typical growth, they won't catch up. That's really important. So I think all the metrics are important. I just want to gently remind the board, IAR is proficiency at grade level, but a significant part of it is growth as well. That's basically baked into the calculation for our school designations. So we want our kids growing.
And one of the things that's really cool about this is I think it's been a pattern that our students with disabilities have been a big chunk of where some of our determinations.
That's correct.
Been. And seeing this percentage growth being increased is really encouraging.
Positive. Yes, I would say that's true.
Yes, you'll see on the slides wherever there was an identified subgroup. So at middle school, we also had Black students that were identified as an underperforming subgroup. Ms. Kurtz added those in for each of the buildings as well, because we're always looking at how those subgroups are performing. We looked at them all the time, whether they were underperforming or not, but definitely if they were identified through the state process, we definitely want to keep our eyes on those. The one other thing that I want to call out that Ms. Kurtz and I realized that we didn't mention, so if I jump to the difference, Scott was showing you this slide of the English reading score and the math, and you see that placement is represented horizontally from left to right. Unfortunately, iReady, we mentioned that the reading Spanish test is just now become adaptive, but they're still behind on their reporting, so they don't have this horizontal report. However, with bringing on Schoolalytics, which has become a data like rock star for us, We have all the data in Schoolalytics, but unfortunately their production of it is in a vertical format. So it's the exact same data, it's just the Spanish looks vertical versus the English and math look horizontal. Hopefully iReady didn't really give us an answer on when they're gonna have the Spanish report. They said by fall? Okay, well, hopefully they've been right so far on all their timing. So hopefully we'll have that and it'll look consistent, but we wanted to make sure we were reporting out on our Spanish performance. So that's why the graphs look a little different, but it's the exact same data with the same color shading.
The other thing I want to remind the board, and this happens, you have kids that are proficient, so they're at grade level, but maybe not making typical growth. That could happen, right? So maybe they didn't grow as much as they should, but they're still hitting grade level benchmarks. So that's another, maybe, maybe.
All right, good evening. I am speaking on behalf of Mr. Porton, who's not here, and as Indian Hills principal for next year, a little bit about their data, and I'll focus a little bit about the work that we are going to be doing into next year. I've had the privilege of working with Indian Hills School Improvement Leadership Team for 2 full days in the last few weeks. And so we've spent a lot of time talking about what do we want to see next year and how can we continue the growth. So I'll be able to hit a little bit more on our plans for the future for Indian Hill. So their data is very similar in comparison to the other schools as far as their overall proficiency. It is not where we want it to be. Putting that out there. They had a lot of the same focus in their SIP plan with focused on the personalized learning platform that is available in iReady. When talking with our school improvement leadership team last week, actually, they focused a lot on how they felt in math. It closely aligned with what they were doing in the classroom, which would make sense because we do use iReady's Tier 1 math core curriculum. So there is a deep connection between what their core curriculum is and the personalized pathway and the lessons there. In reading, though, we use a different Tier 1 core curriculum, and so we're not seeing as much of an alignment. So as a school improvement leadership team, we want to focus on where can we dig into the reading platform of iReady and make better connections to what we're doing in the classroom so that way we can improve our proficiency and growth. For Spanish language arts, we had great improvement there for our Spanish reading test. One thing that's important to note that is different for our intermediate building in 3-5 is our dual language program is a 2-teacher model. So in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, you have 2 teachers teaching the 3rd grade students. You have 1 teacher that is focused on Spanish language arts and the other content area, Dr. Stefan, I don't remember what it is in 3rd grade. It might be social studies and Spanish. And then you have another teacher teaching English, their English language development and math in English. So in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade across the district, you'll see that 2-teacher model, which was new across the board this year. So we are looking forward to expanding on that as far as really digging in on what those 2 teachers are doing and how they connect to the personalized pathway and their proficiency moving forward. And then lastly, here is our growth, or typical growth and stretch growth. In reading, you did see we didn't meet the average typical growth at 51% overall, but in reality, you want to see 100%, right? At the end of the day, we want 100% of our students meeting their typical growth. So we did meet the average there in reading and about 44% in math, and 18 and 11% met that stretch growth. So we want that number to be higher as well. But similar to what Dr. Stefan said, our students with disabilities did outperform in most of those areas in terms of growth. And one thing that I do want to point out that at Indian Hill, they focused a lot this year on really trying to push some of our students who are in our self-contained special education classrooms out into the general education classroom in certain content areas. And I think that does make a difference. And we saw that here at that growth.
Hi, good evening. I'm here to speak about Villages data. So this I would like to talk about this, but the last slide is what I would like to talk about the most. So we can see here that we did move students into the mid or above grade level with a 9% increase, and also for reading, and also moved them out of the 3 grade levels or below, which is at an 11% increase. And for math, we increased students into the green mid or above grade level range by 13%, and decreased 3 students at the 3 grade levels or below range. This year, our focus really, since last school year, the 24-25 school year, was the first year of implementation for the 2 new curricular programs that we have. We implemented those with fidelity, meaning we followed exactly what they were expected to do. This year, in the school improvement plan at Village, we really focused on small group instruction, differentiating the instruction for learners, meeting them where they're at. I'm very excited about the PLC reset for next year. I think by resetting the PLC process within the elementary buildings is going to give us an opportunity to strategically and purposefully look at student growth data, to really look at how students are learning, not just what they are learning, to plan together for how they are learning and how they are responding to the instruction as a team and what they're being given. Like my colleague said, our dual language students are really performing well. In the building, we had many of our students move up to early on grade level and to the mid or above grade level range. This is the slide I would like to talk to you most about, because this slide directly relates to the first slide that you saw. Like Dr. Mendoza said, if we don't have students meeting stretch growth, they are consistently going to be behind. And so next year in our school improvement plan, like I said, we're really going to focus on the PLC reset, what that looks like in PLCs, analyzing student growth data more frequently, having common formative assessments, and then changing the instruction, adapting the instruction, intervening for students. But we're also going to strategically focus on vocabulary. In our already data, we noticed that vocabulary was one of the lowest areas for most students, as well as on our learning pathway data. If you don't focus on vocabulary, students cannot access the grade level content. So we're going to focus on vocabulary at 2 different levels. Tier 2 vocabulary, which is vocabulary that you would see in words that go across content, like compare and contrast, infer, predict. And we're going to focus strategically instructing students prior to instruction of the content. We're also going to focus on tier 3 in vocabulary, which is content-specific vocabulary. Words like polygon, photosynthesis, amendment, things that they're going to see within the content that they have to understand before they can access the content. We're going to focus on oral language development and our oracy skills, utilizing different strategies for our language learners to ensure that they have access to the grade level content as well as focus on more collaborative engagement structures within the classroom.
Good evening. I guess I'm the elementary closer. I'm going to bring it home with the only K through 5 school here. This is a lot, holding down a button and working a remote. It's
Every
a lot
visitor
for the end
says
of the
that,
day.
by the way.
All right, so if you look at the RLAS data in reading and math, we sort of follow the same tail that every other school is following. We're definitely showing more students moving into the green and decreasing our red as the year went on. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we think we got there and where we're going next. This year in our school improvement program or plan for reading, we worked exclusively on student oracy. We wanted our students talking, not our teachers talking. So we modeled a lot of discourse strategies at our faculty meetings, at our SILT meetings, and had our SILT members bring them back to their PLCs. So it was not uncommon to walk past a classroom and hear a student say, "I politely disagree with you," or "I'd like to add on to that idea." So we believe that that helped them build a stronger understanding of comprehension within reading. And while our students are showing growth, we still want to obviously make them grow even further. So we've identified our lowest skill set area in reading is comprehension of informational text. So kind of like Village, we also identified the next lowest sub-skill was vocabulary. So we're going to be working a lot on vocabulary, and our SILT team would like to do an all school wide vocabulary initiative, a word of the day, really get kids to understand, and then also do some small quick assessments within the classroom as they work together in their PLCs. Our math tells a similar tale, and again, we built student discourse into our math as well. So students were challenging each other, saying, I got the same answer, but I figured it out a different way. So there was a lot more talking, and we grabbed those strategies from the Elevation platform that we have here in the district. So while we made significant progress in math, we also feel that we have a ways to go, and our lowest skill set in math is data and measurement. So our SILT team decided that as opposed to a standalone unit at the end of the year, usually comes late spring, they would like to embed measurement and data questions and topics and real world things throughout the school year as well. So that will be a focus for us for next year. Our Spanish reading also showed progress as well. We see that our students went from 5% at or above to 25% at or above. We attribute that change to our teachers having a better understanding of the new curriculum, as well as having that reoccurring professional development with Amy Mascara, who was hired by the district to provide professional development. So we are one of those schools that did show in reading our students with disabilities are outperforming their general education peers, which we're glad to see that because that is a targeted area for us. So one of the things that our district worked on this year was they partnered with Catalyst for Educational Change. We will continue that work next year, and some of the tips that our team has gotten is to pair kids across grade levels by same skills that they need support in, so that those students can also get more services and more time with kids that are needing the same skills that they need as well. So we're going to do some intentional flexible scheduling with that. This year we started a buddy program. We believe that all students learn better when they feel better. So we trained our fourth graders to be peer buddies to our students with disabilities. And next year we hope to increase that with our third and fourth grade students as well. We know that students learn better when they feel great, and we want to make sure that everybody feels valued at RLAS. Some other notable changes that we believe speaks to our data is particularly our kindergarten data, which is not shown on these slides. But we did embark on that work with our ISB Kids coach in setting up developmentally appropriate play. And we invited Peggy McGuire to come and help us set up a kindergarten classroom at the beginning of the year. She said you can always do more with what you have. So she helped us reimagine how we could organize our desks into different areas for our students. And of course, now we have tables, which is wonderful. So we want to keep that going as well. And finally, our staff worked really hard to motivate our students. So we were watching how many kids were rushing, because on iReady, they get a flag. And last year we had a lot of kids just clicking. So we wanted to make sure that they were taking their time and we were getting real true data that we could intentionally build goals on. So there was a lot of goal setting happening in classrooms. There were a lot of visuals and bulletin boards and displays throughout the school tracking how kids were doing. So we feel that that was a real motivator, and we had very few rushing flags this year, which we were excited about. So thank you for this opportunity. We're going to turn it over to middle school.
Real quick before we jump into middle school, are there any questions at all specific to elementary?
Ellis and didn't have kindergarten data. Could you say more about that? Yeah.
Ellis has included in all of the data. So when you're seeing like their overall reading, kindergarten is in there, but Ms. Carden was just referencing like it's not pulled out separately. You could see that in that original highlight slide, but this does include K through 5 data for Ellis. It's not pulled out. You don't see each grade level individually. Okay, we'll move on to middle
I have a
school.
question, sorry.
Oh, go.
I'm just actually going to follow up in regards to Ellis and their kindergarten data because they have the highest increases. And Ms. Carden mentioned about, was it an ISB coach?
Yes, we started last year in March, so it'd be a little bit over a year now. We brought our ISB Kids coach, her name's Peggy McGuire, on site and did just training on developmentally appropriate practices for only kindergarten teaching staff and teaching assistants as well. And they continued that training from last March all the way through this entire school year, where they got training on the particular like recommended strategies. Ellis was one of the schools that the teachers wanted to invite the coach in to help organize the classroom, so they did that before school even started. So we have the access. It's wonderful. It's free to use that ISB coach as honestly as we like. I mean, obviously her schedule is her schedule, but when we said, can you come visit classrooms? When teachers reach out, they go. And we definitely found at Ellis, so we had a lot of teachers jumping in on those opportunities. It happened at other buildings a little bit too, but I would say that Ellis jumped in right away from the beginning.
And just to clarify, because I know we have community and the ISB, meaning the Illinois State Board of Education.
Yes, correct. And I should also state the acronym PLC we've used a lot with our principals.
I was going to
stands
say
for
that next.
Professional Learning Community, which is the period during the day that happens every day where teachers collaborate with their grade level peers. So like the first grade team of teachers at Murphy work together in a PLC.
Yeah, I was going to say that next because I noticed. Let me just stick on that for a moment with Ellis inviting ISB then in to the classrooms. They obviously seem to have a lot of growth. Are the other buildings going to be doing that?
Yeah, Peggy definitely. I mean, I'd have to have each of them. Trina, I don't know if you know how often, or Scott, how often Peggy came in, or even Casey. I know you were in great contact with her, but she was in every school. She went through every single kindergarten classroom. She did an inventory of what are all of the resources we have in those rooms, and that's how we worked with the teachers to determine what would be the right steps for furniture, what would be the right steps for toys, and curricular resources to support various different centers. So she was in every single classroom, and every single kindergarten teacher was in training with her every SIP day, except our last SIP day in May. We did just a kindergarten celebration, and Peggy wasn't present for that. But they were all a huge part of it. It was more of a, did they take the opportunity to get the coaching to come in? And that was more determined by teachers. I don't know if you have any more specific data, but.
So yeah. Then that's the one piece that the others didn't do. Are we going to have them do it?
Yeah, I don't think it's something we'd have to work in partnership with determining what her availability is and working just to determine how we could make that happen as far as her being available with every single teacher. But I know that she offered for all of the teachers to reach out, but it certainly can be something that we can look into to see. I definitely think there were other things, the data across the board in kindergarten, 100% Ellis jumped the most, but we saw significant gains across every building.
Yeah.
So,
and
but we can certainly reach out to her.
That, but when you hear the principal say that this is why she believes they've had this significant impact,
for sure. I can work
with the others.
I can work with Trina and with Scott and Darlene to determine how we can get that more available within the other buildings, for sure.
Okay.
Any other questions? No. Okay, we'll move on to middle.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am kicking it off for the middle schools. So I am going to start by looking at McGee's overall data. When we look at this, obviously red, we don't like to see red, right? But when we really dive into the data and we look at it, we can see that red is multiple grade levels behind. When we look at both reading and math for McGee, we can see that we have shifted the pendulum over all the way, and we have made growth in every single category and decreased in the red, which means we are moving students from the red to the yellow to the green. And we showed growth in both of those areas this year from fall to spring. It's not the growth that I want. I want to see more growth. I think that we all want to see more growth when it comes to our data, but we did show growth throughout the course of the year with all of our students. When we're looking at our Spanish reading, something to note this year is that the middle schools rolled up dual this year. This was the first time that McGee has had any type of programming like this in our building. And we have shown pretty significant growth with our students in this area throughout the course of the year. When we're looking at dual at the middle school level, we had 2 subjects, which was social studies as well as English language arts, that worked with our dual students over the course of the year. And it was a very big positive for us at the middle school level. Students connected well, the teachers connected well with the students, and I think that that is a huge tribute to the growth that we made in this area. When we're looking at the progress towards typical growth, there are still a lot of areas that we need to work on and that I want to dive deeper into the data for McGee. Some things that we did throughout the course of the year is we focused a lot on our SILT team looking at the data. Every time we would take one of these benchmarks, we would then take the data back and we would dissect it as an entire group. Our math team went student by student through each one of their individual scores and decided what was their growth and what was their weaknesses, and we built a chart based off of that. And then students were pulled in during math class. They were also pulled in during lunchtime if they had time at the end of lunch, and they were working on their individual pathways and their individual goals. That is something that I want to see because it was very successful in math over the course of this year, getting kids to work on their pathways and do it that way. That is something that I want to be replicated in English language arts for next year as well. And that is something that we have discussed as a team doing. When we look at children with disabilities, we obviously did not make the growth that was seen in other buildings. And that is something that we really need to dive into as a building to figure out kind of what is going on. And kind of look at that individualized student data on a deeper level. During our last few SIP meetings or SILT meetings, when we were talking about our SIP and kind of planning for next year and looking at our data and where we want to go from there, there are a few things that we decided that we wanted to do. And one is just celebrating students more for the growth that they are making, having more celebratory things within the classroom, at a classroom level, at a building level, to really highlight the students that are making growth and kind of promote that throughout the course of the way. And then when we're looking at children with disabilities and we're looking at this data, something that we already talked about is we have 2 brand new ELS teachers that are super excited for taking on those classrooms next year. And we've kind of looked at programming for that for this upcoming school year. One thing that we've talked about doing, which we are putting in plan, is looking at the schedule and getting those students more included in the general education classrooms. So getting our ELS students involved in the gen ed classrooms for science classes and social studies classes, and really building that in throughout the course of the day and building that community. I think another thing that we have talked copious amounts about is really analyzing the individual assessment data at PLC meetings with our teachers on a regular basis. They already do this, and this year we spent a lot of time looking at enrichment activities as well as reteaching activities, and that is something that we are going to continue to build off of next year, basing that on the students' individual goals. Something that Mr. Randolph and I have also talked about is between both buildings is creating time throughout the course of our day next year to really focus on those pathways and in all of our classes, and where we can build those in wherever there's gaps, and really look at goal setting for middle school students, because it is a pivotal time in their curriculum and in their educational career that they need to set these goals for themselves, and we also need to teach them to hold themselves accountable with us guiding them along the way. So that's something that we're really going to be working on next year as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm gonna follow up with what she just said, Mrs. Howard, regarding when we're looking at the pathways. So one thing I want to note is that at the end of this year, our math department, we looked at data concerning the pathways that the students were taking. One of our goals was a number of modules that they can take. So we wanted them to I want students to complete three modules this week, 4 modules this week. So at the end of the year, what we looked at was it the number of modules completed, or was it the time spent on those modules? And what we found was there was no direct correlation between the modules completed to growth, but it was actually the time spent on those modules that had a direct correlation to growth. And again, this is something that we just discovered right at the end. And so one thing we want to focus on for next year is if we've got data that shows that it's the time spent, that means students are slowing down. They're starting to take in what they're learning. Will this help them now with IAR? If they're going to take the IAR test, is this going to allow them to, or is it going to get them into the habit of slowing down when they're taking the test? So I think that's really important that obviously Ms. Howard and I, we've discussed this, and this is something we really want to look at for next year as well. As far as the data that you see up here, we are getting good movement, and one of the things we focused on this year, especially with SILT, especially within PLCs, is where the students are at, right? We have to know where the students are at before we can help them to progress. And so within the PLCs, we really had the groups focus on, again, down to individual students is what I want to say. Is we looked at a lot of data as far as their formatives, their summatives, the iReady, benchmarks, and really started honing in on those students who were in that darker red to red area and focusing on the growth, not necessarily their grade, but we wanted teachers to say I wanted teachers to be able to say, here's where my student is at, and here's how they're growing. Not that they are, but how are they growing? You heard oracy strategies mentioned by some of the elementary buildings. And as you see the Spanish reading, we had a tremendous amount of growth when we think about we had 52% down to 36% when we look at 3 grade levels below. Same thing with the 2 grade levels below. There was a trend, an increase there simply because we were moving students out of the 3 grade levels below into 2 grades. One thing we can attribute to this to is the oracy strategy, meaning we're looking at their listening, communication skills, written skills. They tend to be specific to our EL students, but why aren't we using this with all students? So one thing we did this year, we started implementing oracy strategies in all grade levels, in all subjects. And we don't necessarily have the data that shows it's working, but what we do know is we did a survey with the teachers, and they loved doing these skills in the classroom and actually commented on wanting more PD with this. So we're taking something that's used for one specific group, and now we're going to, just make it a building-wide implementation. I mean, why not? And then the last part here, I do want to point out that yes, our students with disabilities, they outperformed basically everybody in reading with 141%, so 58% of them met their growth goals. In math is an area that we really want to focus in on, since we had 48%, 35, 50, and 34%. So we didn't have those high number of students meeting their growth goals. So with math, I think by, again, going back to time spent on their pathways, which focuses on their deficiencies, I think that will help us tremendously in getting more students to actually achieve that typical growth. And obviously with the ultimate goal of hitting that stretch growth.
Sorry, any particular questions for middle school specifically?
I do. I was waiting for Mr. Jewett. I'll start with Round Lake Middle first. Mr. Randolph, how you highlighted your students with disabilities and increase is phenomenal. is there anything specific you can attribute it to it? You mentioned, is it some strategy?
With the artsy strategies?
Yeah.
Think that had a big part of it, but I think there was a more focus on where those students were at. So again, getting the mindset of the staff to think not in terms of my students can't do it, but where are they at and how do I help them to grow. I think that helped with the special education department into really looking at their students. Where are we at? Revisiting their goals within the IEPs. Are they what the goals should be? I mean, to say it bluntly, it's like, are they appropriate? And so I think with that focus, plus what you have in your PLCs is people discussing those students, discussing our special education students, discussing all of our subgroups for that matter. So in terms of having the discussions and to start focusing on those students, I think that had a huge impact because it brought to light where the students are at and what we need to do for them.
All right, thank you.
It's actually, you can. Thank you. Give me a little bit of time to formulate my questions. So, as I look at, and I think this probably applies to both middle schools, but there's the amount of students that are 2 and 3 grades below, it's heavy, and that requires, if I get this correctly, over 100% increase in growth, multiple years to be able to catch up, correct?
Yes. And so when we get them in 6th grade, that is, we've talked about this in SILT, and what are we going to do now that we're going into year 3 at the building for me? What are we doing for those 6th graders to prepare them for high school? Because they have a lot of work to do and they have a lot of catching up to do. And how are we going to do that? And so again, by focusing on where are the students at and how are we going to get them to grow, I think is going to have a tremendous impact. Because I don't know that that mindset is there or has been there when we think about growth. Like I have to tell teachers, don't think about the grades, think about the growth. Where is your student at? How are we going to make them grow?
And is this kind of a cohort sort of thing? Or because when I look at the elementary schools, it's not necessarily, those numbers aren't, it's like all of a sudden there's this big jump in middle school from the elementary schools. And so what?
Glad you asked that question. So with iReady, they have new benchmarks that started last year with our 6th graders. We now have them as 7th graders. So we'll get that cohort data with our 8th graders at the end of next year. And so with the 3 years now, we'll be able to get cohort data from 5th, 6th to our 7th graders, and then 6th, 7th, and our 8th graders. And basically the same thing with our 6th graders. So we'll get a nice 3-year trend data line for all those students.
It's actually a different question. So the question is, do we anticipate that trend to continue, or do we think it's probably going to drop off in a way?
The trend of so many students in the red areas, I think it's going to drop off.
Yeah, I can jump in for sure. Miss Kurtz and I we live this stuff. So I think it's important to call out that our current 5th graders are the last group of kids. And I know we don't like to talk about COVID, but it hit kids. So when you look at those placement charts, to your point, yes, it's harder to be further behind because you're younger, but there's also quite a big difference between our middle school kids who all were in primary grades during COVID. So I think that can't be our only answer, but I do want to call out, I did some kind of crunching of numbers that in both of our middle schools from last year to this year, more students met their math growth. So for example, at McGee, 4% more, they were 4% higher, and at Round Lake Middle, they were 3% higher from last year to this year in their math growth. So like middle school for me, because when I look at that placement, it's like, wow, so much red. We have to look at where is their success, but there's still obviously a ton of growth that needs to happen. And growth is really important because that's what's going to move them to a higher placement. Reading in the middle schools, McGee was flat from last year to this year, and Round Lake Middle dipped a tiny bit by 2%. in their growth. So there's a little bit more there to do with reading, which to me was on my next steps focus area slides, speaks to the focus that actually Miss Fontana spoke to in understanding the ELA curriculum, because the ELA curriculum at elementary or middle is not iReady. So math, they have that resource in iReady to pay attention to the assessment, use all of the curricular resources connected to that. But reading, iReady is helpful, but it's more of like just a benchmark. It's not necessarily the curricular tool that's going to help them dive into increasing. So reading, I'll talk about that in next steps, what we've done in reading to try to help support that piece. But we definitely are seeing more growth in math than we are in reading at middle school, and I think that ties to the need for some new middle school curriculum coming our way for ELA. So I hope that kind of helps speak to the middle school piece, but you can't ignore the COVID piece, and then we have to look at what's happening in math versus in reading.
The other thing I want to say is, since I've been in the district, that trend, it doesn't matter if it's with IAR, it doesn't matter if it's with iReady, and it doesn't matter if it's with MAP. You see an upward trend in elementary, they hit 6th grade, and it almost like resets. If you look at the state level, at all 3 levels, high school, middle, and elementary, for number of schools on status by level, by far the biggest number is middle school. By far, it's not even close. So when I say on status, when we come to you with the chart with all the colors and which subgroups aren't hitting, the level that has the most that are designated targeted or below every year since this new system in place is middle school. If it was easy, we would just follow the model, but I mean, 6 through 8 is very, very challenging for kids. It's the most rapid period of development a child is going to have other than the first year of infancy. 6th grade is a lot different than 5th. So that's why we do a lot with transitions and support. We have mentoring, those types of things. But generally speaking, and it's just a fact, middle schools typically drop, and then we have to try to accelerate them back up. And I think we do a good job, especially when the kids leave the middle school, they hit a high school with some of the supports there. But I'm just stating it as a fact, just something to think about, that there's more middle schools on status than any school in the state, any level in the state, and it's significant. High schools have it the easiest because half the measure is graduation rate, which in my opinion, the bar's really low on that, than the elementary, but the hardest is the middle level. So.
All right, I will jump.
I have one more question because Ms. Howard mentioned it and then Mr. Randolph said it last. The SILT team, so that's the School Improvement Leadership Team. Okay, just wanted to make sure that when you were referring to that, that's what it was.
Yes, School Improvement Leadership Team, for sure.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, jumping back into the kindergarten data and some highlights. When we started the presentation, I jumped into the data and looking at the significant growth that occurred across each of the buildings and then holistically as a district. And the bullet points on the bottom speak to the factors that we believe made a significant impact on seeing the gains that we have here. And I have to have number 1 be teacher efficacy. There's a famous educational researcher named John Hattie out of Australia, and I can't do his accent, but he has done a massive study of what are the influences that have greatest impact on student achievement, and number 1 is teacher efficacy. And I really strongly believe that we spent a ton of time building relationships and collaborating with teachers, our building principals. You could see they spoke to the kindergarten work, definitely spent time with kindergarten. We made sure the training was specific to their needs. And there were a lot of different surveys that went back and forth based on the different bullet points here. So when we talked about classroom environment, we worked with our ISB coach and talked to the teachers about what are the things we need in our classrooms. When we talked about professional development, of course, it was based on best practice and research that was coming from our ISB coach, but also from what our teachers were telling us. When we looked at the different curriculum resources that we created in kindergarten classrooms, their developmentally appropriate play instruction was based on social studies units. They've had 4 units. Their first unit was Who Am I at School, which helped the teachers to create like a really solid community. So there were a lot of pieces about curriculum resources. Teachers had also given us feedback they wanted to be using the Reading Horizons phonics and sight words. So that was something that we moved to in supporting them with phonics. And math, we did a lot using iReady and finding play-based activities within the curriculum and provided opportunities to co-teach with our math elementary specialists. And our ISB coach even recommended school districts to come and visit our kindergarten classroom, so we had Johnsburg kindergarten teachers come out. So again, we really saw some positive. One thing I just realized, we also have an SEL specialist that worked with some of the individual teachers as well to really support that classroom environment. So it was a really good collaboration with building admin, their kindergarten teachers, and with district admin to really make sure that we were responding to student needs and teacher needs and creating a great kindergarten experience across the board. Next slide dives into different strengths and areas of focus. We just went over the kindergarten data. Next thing on there, you heard the principals speak to the students with disabilities in some of our buildings where we really had some positive highlights there, and our students with disabilities actually outperforming their peers without disabilities. Median annual typical growth exceeding 100% happened across several buildings, which was exciting to see. And then the more than 50% of students changing that placement from being at grade level. We had every elementary school was above 50% in reading and math, and then Round Lake Middle was there for math. So again, we saw some key strengths there. For areas of focus, with the iReady days, each of the principals definitely spoke to this in some way. Understanding the iReady resources that are available, mostly in math, is something they have to dive into for sure in their PLC reset, because math is directly tied to the curriculum. And then like diving in a little bit more to their ELA curriculum, I think will be extremely positive and support teachers and increase student achievement. They will do all that work with their school improvement leadership teams to decide on the areas of focus that they would want to look at in regards to curriculum and making the supports available for enrichment and then for intervention. Other principals also touched on potential goal setting and data conversations with students. We know that that is definitely something important to get students involved in understanding their progress and what their goals look like. Another piece on here we have is curriculum adoptions. This evening we have the middle school ELA curriculum adoption on the agenda, and science for next year. Will roll out brand new curriculum. Science is a free resource. Those are the kinds we love. It's called Open SciEd, and it's highly recommended across science organizations. And we've been rolling out new units in science over the last several years, 6th through 8th grade, but next year every unit will be updated and be ready to go. And then they'll be in year 2 at middle school for social studies and math. So next year, every core area will have new curriculum, which I think will be exciting for building principals and their leadership teams to really dive into those resources to support students. When we talk about curriculum at the elementary level, we've made a lot of shifts over the last 2 years with new curriculum coming in. Moving into this year, reading intervention based on teacher feedback and principal feedback will no longer happen during ELA small group. Our teachers were saying we want to be with our kids. We don't want them leaving with an interventionist when we're supporting reading. So they're going to be getting their reading intervention in K2 in science during their science period. They'll be pulled. And then to make sure our elementary kids still have exposure to science, 3rd through 5th grade will be pulled during social studies. So we had to find a time in the day that they could be supported, but that is a shift based on teacher feedback and building principal feedback as well. A couple other things that are happening. We are moving to that Reading Horizons phonics resource at 3rd grade, and we made some shifts to writing curriculum that happened this year in 3rd through 5th grade that will happen next year in K2. Which leads me to the last bullet point on there. We know that iReady is a new resource, so working with Ms. Kurtz and principals to better understand how to interpret the data and how it directly relates to IAR is extremely important. We have received our preliminary IAR data. It is embargoed, so we can't go into great detail other than to say we're very excited to see some really good pockets of positive growth and positive proficiency movement. With that being said, we want to make sure that we're looking at the right numbers and the right reports in iReady to be able to predict and support what will happen with our IAR state-based assessment. So again, that more will come in the fall with our standard fall student achievement report on the school report card. But that really kind of wraps up all things student achievement and our local assessments K through 8. So I will take questions at this time.
I just have two. I just was curious with the Johnsburg district visits. Why was Johnsburg selected?
It depends, and Ms. Kurtz could jump in if I miss anything, but the ISB coach is really just a resource that districts can call in if they choose to. And she was assigned to work with Johnsburg, our coach. There's several coaches. So when she was working with her districts, they were asking who should we see. She threw out our name, so then Johnsburg reached out to us.
Thank you. So then you mentioned about pullouts. So it's gonna happen now in social studies and science. Are we worried about the kids maybe dipping or because now they're losing a different section?
Yes, 100%. That is the constant challenge that we have in looking at what's the right place. In listening to our teachers and our building principals, they really felt like that small group reading and writing instruction when they weren't with their classroom teacher was a pretty heavy hit. They weren't seeing growth for those students. And I have to point out too, in kindergarten, we made a shift at semester. Ms. Fontana looked at our kindergarten intervention data, actually our K2 intervention data, and we did not see that much progress from fall to winter. So we made a shift in it and said all interventionists are only going to reteach that core phonics reading horizons curriculum. They're not using other materials. They're just going to reteach what their teacher was teaching them. And then we saw the gains we saw in kindergarten. So we just felt like paying attention to what teachers were telling us about more time with my kid in reading had to trump. And again, it was difficult, right? We don't want them missing social studies, but I want to call out the reason we flip is because they're assessed in science in 5th grade. So we wanted to make sure they were in science 3rd through 5th grade, and then they're not assessed in social studies. So that's why.
Okay.
And the superintendents, we're constantly frustrated because sometimes if you take the entire mandated ISB curriculum, I think I've read somewhere it takes like 26 years to teach it all. We have to make choices sometimes, and I think there's more academically based bills in Illinois every year than any state I know of, like by 5 times. We have neighboring states. If you look at the number of bills being proposed, and normally what happens is an event occurs somewhere in the state, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a bill. And interestingly, there isn't legislation when something gets added to remove something else. So it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So a lot of times we're focused on coverage, which we don't like. I think John Randolph talked about it tonight. It's not about coverage, it's about depth. And so sometimes we have to make decisions. And absolutely, we think science and social studies is really, really important. But there's no mandate in terms of number of minutes required per week. So we have to do that. And I'm not suggesting you're not supporting this. I'm just explaining that it is a quandary we're always dealing with. The number of mandates that come in curriculum. You need to teach a unit on this, and now another bill. You need to teach a unit on this. And all of a sudden, we don't have enough, we're not extending the school year. We're not extending the day. So, like, where do we get it in? So sometimes we have to make choices that we don't like.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the explanation. And I know, yes, there's only so many hours and minutes in a day, and school's only in session for so long. So I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Then we'll have another presentation, probably on par with this in the fall, with all of our state report card, our state assessments, and et cetera. So,
Is one-to-one required to do iReady?
Sorry, repeat that?
In other words, we're one-to-one throughout the district, correct? And is one-to-one, thank you. Is that required, or is that a tool that helps, or it really is relevant?
It isn't a state mandate that I am aware of that you have to give your students a device. I would just say that currently their curriculum is on a device, so that would require some transition. But no, there's nothing saying you have to have an iPad or have to have a Chromebook. No.
Well, I'm just going to say it now because it's going to come forward. We're actually looking very critically at the amount of screen time our kids have at the elementary level. And actually, there's some research coming out, this particularly in the area of AI, that elementary kids shouldn't be exposed to it at all. Frankly, middle and high school kids, but I think we're looking at potentially doing some things at elementary because of some of the things that happened with our play-based experiential kindergarten curriculum. So, and that it's a pendulum, right? So I think you'll be hearing more about it from us.
Any additional conversation?
Just want to thank the principals, the team, Casey, Lisa. I think it's really good for our principals to be able to come and get in front of the school board. I think you all did a really, really good job. So thank you.
All right, that will take us to any questions from the board on the memo on the recycling of obsolete technology? Hearing none there. Any questions from the board in regards to the memo for the FOIA report requests? Hearing none there. Any questions on reviewing the contracts under 1,000 as listed? All none of them? Exactly. All right, so that will take us to opportunity for public comment. As always, members of the public, we participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person. And please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes of time. Do we have any local public comment at this time? Hearing none there, we will then transition to the superintendent's report and Dr. Mendoza.
Board members are invited to participate in mock interviews with students participating in the district's Future Ready Summer Program on June 10th from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. The experience provides students with an opportunity to strengthen interview and workplace readiness skills through authentic practice and feedback from community and district leaders. Invitations were distributed by Carolyn Corcoran, and board members interested in participating are asked to confirm directly with Carolyn. The following donations were received by the district and/or schools over the past month. A thank you letter will be sent to each donor. We had 800 popsicles by Junior Panther wrestlers to the Junior Panther wrestlers from Beach School for the Beach School Field Day. 20 pizzas by Germanos to Village 5th grade celebration, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Any questions for Dr. Mendoza? Hearing none, that'll take us to committee reports, and this evening we did have the Community Engagement Committee, so the update, Ms. Lee.
Thank you. The Community Engagement Committee, some of us, met this evening. It was a pretty light agenda, but we did discuss, as earlier in the year, we had parent-teacher advisory committee meetings along with the stakeholder advisory meetings, and areas, opportunities for growth were identified, and you can read them in the packet, but some opportunities that were discussed for improvement were related to communication, family engagement, academic support, technology, accessibility, student wellness, safety, and parent empowerment. The timeline was discussed, and with the first priority being this summer and early fall. And you can look at the packet for more details, and that was pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions?
Hearing none, thank you very much. And that'll take us to approval of open meeting minutes.
I need a motion to approve the May 19th, 2026 regular board meeting minutes.
So, second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Larson. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yeah.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco.
Yes. Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the May 20th, 2026 special board meeting expulsion hearing at 6 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Ms. Larson. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Abstain.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Abstain?
Miss Lee,
Abstain.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the May 20th, 2026 special board meeting expulsion hearing at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Oh, Mr. DeVera, sorry. One of those. Great even. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Abstain.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Abstain?
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco.
Abstain. Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the following items. The accounts payable report for $1,438,390.53 and the June 1st, 2026 employment report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Motion carries. And that'll bring us to new business. And first up on that is Dr. King with Wayground.
Good evening. Administration is requesting the board approve a multi-year contract with Wayground. Wayground was brought to finance at the last meeting where Mrs. Negretti McGinley helped us by asking many questions to dig into the details of what this actually will offer. We are in the process eliminating and replacing two former softwares, Nearpod and Edpuzzle. The rationale for this is not only is it a cost savings of over $40,000, it is also the usage of the two previous softwares was very low, and the Wayground actually provides the same service at a cheaper cost and a better product. This was vetted out through multiple committees to ensure that it's best for students and staff.
So as mentioned by Dr. King, this came to finance. We had questions in reviewing the contract regarding the enrollment and pricing that's listed on the contract, professional development, the PD catalog that's offered, quite a few things that actually we got a new agreement from the facility or from the vendor. So what you see is reflective from the questions that came out of finance. Again, just wanting to make sure we look at our student population and what they're offering, that obviously that meets the need of the district, and it neither any future growth or, as we are currently seeing, a decline in our enrollment. So after those questions, the new agreement that you now see in that packet finances in support of Wayground.
Any additional conversation?
Right. I need a motion to approve the multi-year agreement with Wayground in the amount of $73,083.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yeah.
Ms. Lee? Yes.
Motion carries. And now Principal Peterson, 5-star students.
Hello, everybody. I'll be brief and due to the time on the 5-star contract. Just so, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. 5-star will be used as a positive incentive reward tool for both the high school and the middle school, and also be used for tardy management and detentions at the high school. 5-star will be used to replace the Hero platform. Hero was recently bought out by another company, and we've had a lot of issues with their customer service and use of that program. 5-star has many different features that we can explore at a later date, one being a pass system, digital ID, and also they have beacons where we can set those at locations for various events to track student attendance and participation in various after-school events. The contract that was presented to you, that is for both the middle schools and the high school. And that contract has been brought to the Finance Committee and has also gone through the RIC approval process.
So as Mr. Peterson mentioned, this did come to finance, and again, those questions, again, based on pricing and student population, integration with our student information system, utilizing the app for the new platform, and just some questions on how data, if any, we're going to roll over from the current platform of Hero to the new one. I'll vet it through finance, and again, in support of 5-star. Mr. Peterson didn't mention we use Ornua, the app? Omella. Thank you. Omella for use it in fine arts, and we've used it for prom. We pay a lot of fees for Omella. We're hoping there's a potential to use this new program and we can get rid of Omella. So also looking. No, I was just saying, otherwise looking for some future opportunities with it as well.
And those fees from Omella are rather significant, almost over 9% fees that we pay for using that product.
So we see some other potential uses with this as well.
Hearing no additional conversation?
Thank you. With that, I just need a motion to approve the 5-star students agreement in the amount of $8,145.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Ms. Lee? Yes. Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Negrete McGinley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. That'll bring us Ms. Fontana and a trifecta of fun.
Lucky you. All right, the first contract I have here is for our middle school ELA curriculum, Amplify ELA. This was mentioned during our presentation earlier. We did go to finance at our last meeting. I did update some of the key details into the board memo, but it is a 6-year contract. It is unique in terms of the actual quote because we are purchasing roughly $148,000 out of Ill Power, paid up front for that portion, and then Teaching and Learning will pay the remaining balance of that 6 years up front as well. So that's why it is 2 separate quotes, but does total the same amount for the 6-year term in there. The program is a bundled package. So this means that we are purchasing both the digital resource and the physical materials. The physical materials will include the teacher manuals. So every teacher teaching the course will get the appropriate materials there, a hard copy. And the students will also receive a student consumable workbook. And this is the size of, if you think of like an old school textbook with all the stories, it is a beautiful consumable colored print workbook that we will get every single year for the students, as well as a writing journal per unit is also a consumable that will be replenished. That is included in the price, so there will not be an additional cost year over year. And also we will receive 450 copies per novel that is taught for the year. That is not a consumable, so that is a one-time purchase. So there should not be any additional cost other than potentially replacing a few down the road if needed, just due to wear and tear, but there should not be any additional cost within there. I also did point out, put in the shipping. It was brought up that it is a large shipping price that is all inclusive. So it's really kind of think of it as spread out over 6 years, but we are paying it upfront. So we will not have to pay a shipping cost every year. So that is a one-time cost as well within that product. Number of schools use Amplify is very widely used, and per feedback from those schools and just nationally, the bundled product is the way to go. Not just living on a digital platform, but also having physical resources available for the students. The level of engagement and achievement was seen greater when we had students had access to both.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, again, this was reviewed by finance, and if you notice in the memo, there's a little more bullet points on those considerations. Again, we wanted to make sure those were highlighted for the board. As Ms. Fontana mentioned, again, in reviewing that contract, when you see that shipping cost of over $15,000 and where we spend our money, that's a lot to put into shipping. But again, going over the consumables and what is coming with this program, obviously those textbooks are a bit hefty. But again, it is over a 6 year. This is a 6 year agreement, and there is a discount of 55% for the 6 year agreement. So thank you for calling all that out. I appreciate it.
Hearing no additional conversation?
I need a motion to approve Amplify ELA Middle School Curriculum Resource multi-year contract in the amount of $224,079.96.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, second by Mr. Tavera. Roll call, please.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Devera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett.
Motion carries.
All right. Number 2 is our Goodhart Wilcox Health Curriculum for our secondary students. This would be both for our 6-8 health program and our high school health class as well. As noted within the memo, we have not updated our health curriculum in terms of an actual resource in decades that we're going on. And there's been a lot of pulling of resources. As Dr. Mendoza mentioned earlier, mandates and ISB health is one of the largest lists of things that we need to cover within there. We went with Goodhart Wilcox due to the hands-on materials in activities. So it's a lot different than maybe what we were used to in health class in middle school and high school. But it also has a digital platform. It is ready made in Canvas. So the course is already done for us and we will be able to license through that. So that takes, an element for our teachers there. That was really nice. We are purchasing enough textbooks to outfit 2 classrooms per building. So every student will have access to a textbook, but not individually at home. They will have that digital component that they could reference, but in the classroom, we will have that available. So 2 classrooms per building. We will have that with a few extra as well. You'll see the different, the quote is kind of broken up with a bundled price. That is for the digital plus the textbook price, and then the remaining licenses that we have to purchase for our non-textbook purchase there. So that's why you see 2 different line items, one for the digital only, and then the other for the textbook plus the digital license there. One thing that is important to call out with this program is each student license gets to be used twice per year. So a student who has health at first semester, that license will be able to be used for a different student second semester. So you get 2 uses out of it. Another important call out is at middle school, every student takes health every single year. So that is why you see a different significant cost allocation, because all students every year take health. At high school, they only take health for one semester, typically their freshman year, but it can occur later on. So therefore, we don't need as many student licenses because it is a one-time component for those students. I think that was kind of the highlights there. I did list some other communities that use the program, particularly unit districts that use it both for middle school and high school as well.
So as mentioned, it was reviewed at finance. So thank you for calling out the licenses again and reviewing the contract. Again, you look at what we're purchasing and the enrollment that we have. Again, with those licenses and being able to be reused, that assists in that cost and why you see the amount you do for the licenses.
Hearing no additional conversation?
I need a motion to approve the Goodhart Wilcox Comprehensive Health Curriculum Resources multi-year contract in the amount of $128,549.96.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, second by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee, yes, Mr. DeVera,
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. The third one I have here is for a 1-year subscription to the New York Times for our high school staff and students. This is something that probably most of you are familiar with if you use the New York Times app. If you have a free use, you are limited to the number of articles that you can have in a month. So this will open up the ability for our students to have open access. It is different than what we have as consumers. There are some additional educational components that are tied to the platform that we will have access to, particularly their archives and their primary resources. This is something that will be used cross-curricularly, probably largely in social studies or social sciences and our English classes, but it will be open to all. The number of licenses that we have here is 2,000. And the way the subscription works, it is basically up to 2,000 people within the high school and the domains that license and emails that we provide can have access at any given time. So the odds that every student would be on it at the exact same time is probably slim, but we want to make sure we're going to monitor that in this first year. We want to make sure that we are not cutting it tight and have open access for our high school students. It is something that we did look at for middle school, but the New York Times, for the educational purposes, do not allow for students, they have to be over the age of 13. So this will be a high school only subscription for 1 year.
And again, it was reviewed by finance. The contract was really just a lot of back and forth with the New York Times specifically. It's a little give and take, but we got a final agreement.
Hearing no additional conversation?
I need a motion to approve the New York Times 1-year subscription resource contract in the amount of $2,782.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. DeVera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley,
Yes.
Motion carries. And that'll bring us to positive occurrences. Well, I'll start. We got June 4th and 5th, if I'm not mistaken. We still have our bass fishing team is going to state, and they're in the state finals. So awesome job there. Looking forward to see how that turns out.
I used mine all up last time.
I think the STEM bus started this week. Is what they call it, the STEM bus? STEAM. Sorry. I knew I was going to get it wrong, but so I know my neighbors, they're excited about that. So I know it's out on the website, but again, it gives an outlet for the kids to go to for the summer.
I just want to say obviously been a very, very, very challenging year in many ways. And I think we ended by honoring a commitment that we said through the partnership of the union, Earl, working very diligently in a difficult way to make the right decisions, very, very challenging, but being able to wipe out our deficit completely and, pay the teachers back, the staff, for how they helped us with support from the board was a very, very positive way to end the year. Just bittersweet because it's very, very hard when you're dealing with people and making decisions that are hurtful. It's never easy. So, but I do think we ended it in a positive way by sending the staff off with some good news. So I just want to thank the board for their support. The union leadership obviously was instrumental in this. So I just want to, call that out as a positive.
All right, hearing nothing else on that, any future agenda items?
Actually, I was thinking about the dual language learning program. How long have we had it? And I'm wondering if there is additional positive impact that is because of that program, if we're seeing additional positive impact that may not be in the reports that we measure.
Yeah, we can bring something back for sure.
I just had one. I saw today that the governor passed for the cell phones, so I think it'd be good to let our community know what the policy we have that we currently have established in line with that, and if there's any changes, obviously we need to get that communicated.
I looked it up since we talked about it at community engagement, and it appears at this point in time that the policy that we have in place, it's just that we need a policy.
Exactly.
So
In my high level overview, that it looked like we were in a line, but not professional. So.
Oh, one more positive. I think the governor included the property tax relief grant in the budget. So we'll apply for it and see what happens. We've gotten it twice, so.
Cross your fingers and toes.
All right, hearing nothing else on future agenda, we'll move to approval of closed session minutes, review the prior meetings.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of April 28th, 2026, special meeting. Superintendent's evaluation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tavera, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of May 4th, 2026, regular board meeting.
So.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tavera, seconded by Ms. Lee. Hearing no additional conversation, roll call, please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yep.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain?
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries. And that will bring me to, I need a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following: closed meeting minutes 5 ILCS 120/2C21, employment matters 5 ILCS 120/2C1, real estate 5 ILCS 120/2C5 and 5 ILCS 120/2C6, and litigation 5 ILCS 120/2C11.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yeah.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries. That will take us into closed session. We will have action after closed session, so we will reconvene in open session afterwards for those online. We will see you soon. Thank you and have a great evening. All right, we are back in open session and we have action resulting from.
I need a motion for the dismissal of educational support personnel for reasons other than RIF for Tia Willens.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Hearing no additional conversation, roll call please.
Miss Lee?
No.
Mr. De Vera?
No.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
No.
Mr. Jewett?
No.
Mrs. Larson?
No.
Mr. Francisco?
No. Motion does not carry.
I need a motion for approval for the dismissal of probationary teacher for reasons other than RIF, Martin Baker.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Hearing no additional conversation, roll call please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of May 19th, 2026, regular board meeting.
So.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Miss
No,
Lee?
yes, sorry, yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of May 20th, 2026, special board meeting, expulsion hearing, 6 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tavera, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee?
Abstain.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Abstain.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of May 20th, 2026, special board meeting, expulsion hearing, 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Negretti McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Abstain.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Miss Lee?
Abstain.
Motion carries. And that will bring us to adjournment at 10:28 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and next meeting will be the 15th of June. Have a great day.